Hello, I'm Kaylyn.
I'm Avery.
And I'm Gavin.
Today we are doing a presentation on how music can affect pain tolerance. We each did an experiment throughout the semester involving how music, with or without it, can affect our performance or our pain tolerance level. I worked with my team because I'm on the softball team.
I worked with my team. I'm on the basketball team.
And I got 6 friends from back home.
My experiment was more focused on tolerating pain when it having to do with strength exercise.
I did it more focused on conditioning and stuff. So music was played while we had to run and do lots of cardio activities versus no music.
And we did the same when we were doing specifically ab exercises.
Yeah, and mine was people had to stick their hands in buckets of ice and listen to the music.
So today we're going to discuss how music relieves pain. We're going to talk about our experiments first. Then we're going to talk about how it all works, the physiological basis of blood pressure regulation, what muscles are, how we even receive pain and through our nerves, and how does music play into that. So let's talk about our experiments. Avery, you are up.
So for my experiment, like I said earlier, we did stuff with cardio and lots of conditioning. And we did some of it with music, some of it without, and then I got the results from my team on how it affected them. So based on the experiment, 75% of my teammates said that the music did have an effect on them while we were doing the cardio and conditioning, and then 25% said that it didn't really have an effect on them. Was 85% of the participants said that they felt more focused with the music on, and then 15% said they didn't. Half of them, so 50%, recorded feeling their pain tolerance was much stronger with the music, so they felt they were able to endure more and do more with the music versus without. So half of them felt that it didn't help them at all.
In my experiment, what I basically did was I made it somewhat blind. The softball team doesn't have a very good speaker at times, so there are times when it will shut off accidentally, or we're pausing and we forget to turn it back on. I decided to just kind of record how my team reacted throughout the semester, and I had them fill out a survey because they were experiencing this multiple times throughout the semester, and I eventually was able to get their thoughts on it. 50% of the participants recorded music having a strong effect on the performance, while the other 50% just reported a moderate effect. They felt like, we would like it better with music. 75% recorded feeling extremely more focused during the workout with the presence of with music, and the other 25% just said they felt a little bit more focused. And then 50% recorded feeling their pain tolerance was much stronger with music, and the other 50% recorded it being maybe a little bit stronger, a more moderate effect. Though I do think there's a little bit of a bias because the majority of the softball team does like having music on when they're in the weight room. But however, I do feel that in general, the majority of the softball team all agreed that music had a strong presence on their performance and on their pain tolerance during strength exercises.
Okay, so in my experiment, I got 6 of my friends together, and I had them put each hand in a bucket of ice for 2 minutes. So the first hand, I had them stick it in and listen to nothing. And then the second hand, I had them stick it in and listen to a song of their choice. And then I had them fill out a survey 1 to 10 at the end for each hand. And only 50% of them said it actually did, it moderately helped. While the other 50% said it felt the exact same, which those people might have had a low cold tolerance,
First off, we need to discuss how we get up to these results. Let's talk about how the body works in processing pain, but we need to start at the physiological basis of blood pressure regulation. So first off, blood pressure is divided into 2 types. There's systolic and diastolic. There's something called a baroreceptor reflex, and it kind of divides into high pressure and low pressure in response to really fast changes in how the blood pressure is high or low. It allows these baroreceptors to act, and it stretches the blood vessels to accommodate, or it shrinks it depending on what's happening. If there's too much blood rushing through, it'll stretch the blood vessels. If there's too little, it'll kind of shrink it. There's high pressure baroreceptors, and there's a lot of them. There's aortic arch receptors, which only respond to increase, It's sending signals through the venous nerve. So, in stretching these nerves, it creates an action potential, which ultimately sends the message to neurons to secrete hormones, and this will affect the cardiovascular system as a whole. So, it really just kind of these types of receptors, the aortic arch receptors, it affects the heart really significantly. Activation of these receptors inhibits a nerve response. We already have receptors that are telling the vessels to stretch out. There is a certain response that needs to happen in order to prevent the body from adding more pressure to push the blood through. So what happens basically when blood pressure is too low, then it will decrease this inhibiting factor so that it can say, hey, we need more pressure to push the blood through because we don't have enough of it. So it's really kind of interesting how it works together like that. The hormone that we have is the antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. It's produced in the hypothalamus of the brain, and it's secreted in low bloodstream, causes decreased vessel stretch and low pressure baroreceptors. Decreased blood pressure causes decreased vessel stretch and high pressure baroreceptors. There is also something called RAAS, and it is a regulative arterial pressure, kind of like a system, a cycle that we go through. And it starts in the kidneys that produce renin from its cells, which respond to decreased blood pressure. And so it also affects like the sympathetic nervous system activity, and also reacts to reduced sodium levels. When it enters the blood when coming into contact with angiotensin, which is produced by the liver, and this goes in the pulmonary vessels where the enzyme ACE comes into contact with it, and it creates a hormone, which becomes an activator to help the kidneys function, releases ADH, or it helps increase arterial pressure. And that's kind of how blood pressure all works together. So there are three types of muscles in the body, and we have muscles everywhere, and there are three types. There's skeletal, cardiac, and smooth. Skeletal muscle is typically bound to our skeleton or other areas, and it's more voluntary. Anytime we move our hand or our arm or head, anywhere we have like certain skeletal bones or whatever, that's where the skeletal muscle will be. There's also smooth muscles, which it's typically we have a lot of smooth muscle in our stomach, and it helps us kind of process and digest our food. It is very involuntary. And then also cardiac muscle, which is in the heart. It also acts involuntary and also helps us to pump blood. So how do the muscles even work together? Muscles can typically work with the bone to create movement, as well as helping like the digestive, cardiovascular, and respiratory systems to work. This means there are thousands of fibers that are called tendons, and within these fibers, there are myofibrils. Within myofibrils, there are sarcomeres, and these contain the monofilaments of actin and myosin. Actin and myosin don't touch each other at all because they have troponin and trypomyosin that interfere with this interaction. So then we use ATP, which is an energy-providing chemical, calcium channels to open up and have calcium. And as calcium get through and the troponin, and this troponin will pull the trypomyosin away and kind of stretch open these channels to give actin space and to move and react. So we have ATP broken down by phosphate, it becomes ADP, and this ADP, when interacting with the actin, it makes it tense up like a string and shoot out, and it interacts with the myosin and allows the myosin to change shape. It kind of pulls these fibers together and it allows us to tense up. Whenever we're tensing up, these are what this is what's happening to our sarcomeres. So we have flex and rest. Now this happens every single time we move a muscle. The cycle repeats because the ATP is whenever it's broken down by the phosphate, it becomes ADP, and the cycle just continues to start again and again. Muscles also want blood flow to work as it's made up of tissues, and blood is the best possible way to get a lot of important elements to our muscles, such as phosphate. So when we work out, we use our muscles, so the more blood flow we need to send.
So the next question we're going to talk about is, how do we receive the message of pain? So everyone has nociceptors, so those are very key when it comes to receiving pain in your body. So nociceptors are specialized nerve endings located in the skin, muscles, and organs to detect things like heat, pressure, or an injury. And they send a signal to the brain when something is wrong. So once the nociceptor is triggered, the pain receptor sends signals through the nerve fibers. There are different types of nerve fibers for different kinds of pain. Some carry the sharp, immediate pain, while others carry dull, throbbing pain. So it kind of just depends on the injury, and it'll send different signals to your brain. Ultimately, these signals then travel to the spinal cord, and when they're processed, they sometimes adjust before going to the brain. So this is where our body detects how intense the pain is and whether it needs to respond more urgently. So kind of just depends, like I said before, on the type of injury or the type of pain that's felt. The body will react to it how it sees fit. So once a signal finally reaches the thalamus, it directs the pain signals to different areas, and then these areas help us understand what kind of pain we're feeling, how bad it is, and where it's coming from. So we're also going to talk about what helps us identify pain. So the somatosensory cortex helps us pinpoint exactly where the pain is and how strong it feels. So for example, if you stubbed your toe or cut your finger, that'll kind of help determine it. The limbic system, which is responsible for our emotions, that processes how we feel about the pain. This can make us feel panicked, anxious, afraid, kind of depending on the situation. So like how the pain makes you feel, that's what happens. And then the prefrontal cortex helps us think about the pain, and then helps our body decide how we want to react to the pain and how we want it to respond. It's also the part of the brain that helps us understand the pain based on past experiences. So if you know what a paper cut feels like and you get another paper cut, you're kind of going to have that same reaction because you've experienced it before. Our body can also release natural painkillers like endorphins, which help to calm down the body. I also wanted to note how we experience pain can be different from person to person. So like some people, you will hear that they have higher pain tolerance than others. Things like our mood, stress level, past experiences, and even our cultural backgrounds can help shape how we perceive pain and how we react to pain. Like I have a high pain tolerance, but my sister does not, but we grew up the same. So it kind of just depends on the injuries you've had in the past or past experiences, stuff like that. So.
Okay.
Gavin, take us home with how does music relieve pain?
So, like Avery mentioned earlier, the somatosensory cortex is the part of the brain that interprets pain, and music can influence this part of the brain by reducing the pain signals. And then, when listening to music, the brain releases dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that boosts a person's mood and has an analgesic effect, which basically means it reduces pain or relieves pain. Music also, like Avery said earlier, music also makes your brain release endorphins, which are natural painkillers, and are released during like pleasurable activities, so they can be like a natural painkiller. Relaxing music can activate the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, which is the rest and digest part of it, and when activated, this can reduce the body's stress response and can lower cortisol levels and alleviate muscle tension, causing a reduction in the perception of pain. Structures in the limbic system, like Avery mentioned earlier, like the amygdala and the hippocampus, help regulate emotional and sensory inputs. Music can influence these structures and cause responses to pain to be less negative.
So, what is our conclusion, guys? I mean, we've done quite a bit of research on why this works, and we've done studies to help us guide our experiments.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know mine has a little bit of bias in it, so that's why it was overwhelmingly positive.
I think based just on our experiments, it kind of just shows that like music overall helps, like just the idea of like a distraction kind of too,
Oh yeah.
and helps like the idea of like doing a workout that's super hard or super intense kind of just like makes it like a distraction. It makes it kind of not easier, but just like more bearable.
Well, yeah, but then that also comes from being an athlete.
Mhm.
But then when it comes to you, I think I saw
Yeah.
your study, and I think a lot of them were like more or less the same, but then there were some that were, there was a small change.
Yeah, the fact that they were non-athletes meant that they probably had a lower pain tolerance than the people in your guys' studies, and I
It's
think,
not like used to it.
yeah, it was a different type of pain.
Yeah.
Like your guys were more like muscular endurance type of pain, while mine were cold. And that could be the reason why they were a little bit different results.
I mean, yeah, there's many different kinds of pain, but even for each of our experiments did show that someone was relieved at least the smallest bit for pain.
Yeah.
from music playing.
I think we can all agree today on the physical level that music helps us tolerate pain more.